In this episode of Supply Chain Now Radio, John Slangerup, Executive Chairman and CEO of American Global Logistics, discusses using purpose-built, adaptable, and configurable cloud optimization tools to manage dynamic supply chains.
So today on Supply Chain Now Radio, we're very pleased to have a gentleman who has tremendous experience in logistics and supply chain, Mr. John Slangerup, the Chairman and CEO of American Global Logistics. Good morning again, John.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. So John was appointed, a little background about John. John was appointed Executive Chairman and Chief Executive Officer in July 2017 with AGL. But prior to that, John was the CEO of the Port of Long Beach, an incredible port there on the West Coast, and also had a distinguished career with FedEx, where he advanced to become president of FedEx Atlanta. So welcome again, John. For those who aren't familiar, can you tell us more about American Global Logistics?
Yes, it's great to be here. And American Global Logistics, or AGL, we're often referred to, is a very fast-growing company based here in Atlanta. We've been in business now 11 years and have grown to become a real prominent player in the overall logistics space. Our two core, I think, value propositions we bring to the marketplace. First is our technology platform, which is a cloud-based solution that provides end-to-end visibility, all the things that our customers have become reliant on in optimizing their supply chains, everything from managing their fleets to managing their workflows. And the unique thing about it is this is not a solution that we have a single version of and we apply it to our customers' supply chains. It's in fact a purpose-built system,
very customized.
Very well. It's adaptable and it's configured based on the workflow requirements of our customers. So they don't have to adapt their businesses to run on our system. In fact, it's just the opposite is true. And that has been a very, very successful approach to really addressing unique needs within each complex supply chain. So we find it very, very compelling for our customers. We find the opportunity to reduce costs, which is really the key of applying technology to supply chain, is really the answer. The other thing that we do that I think is very, very, very well received within our industry is the fact that we're a one-stop shop. We assign a professional operations manager for every one of our customers. So they have a gatekeeper into AGL. Whenever there's an issue, there's one person to call, 24/7. And it makes an enormous difference in problem solving. So the combination of the technology-enabled work that we do, coupled with these professional logistics folks that run the show and serve the customer on an individual basis, it's a very powerful combination.
So going beyond the 3PL value proposition, you're truly a 4PL.
Well, we started out as a 3PL, and that's still a very significant part of our business. We obviously facilitate the movement of goods from end to end, from origin to destination. But as technology has evolved and as our platform has become more and more robust, it has taken us into this 4PL world, which is really managing the supply chain on behalf of our customers and effectively managing the activities of their 3PLs. And so that's what 4PLs do, as you know. And we have the tremendous fast-growing segment of our business is 4PL type work. And the applications we've added to the platform really enable that on behalf of our customers.
And you're talking about the adaptability and the flexibility that your solution provides your customers. That's a good thing to have in supply chain in the ever-changing world, hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute.
Yeah, well, you couldn't have a more dynamic environment than trying to manage supply chains. And everybody's supply chain is unique, and everyone is trying to find ways to create that level of visibility to manage things through the entire process. It's interesting. You were talking about the Atlantic, the Georgia
Logistics Summit,
the Logistics Summit, which we're going to be presenting at. We're co-presenting with one of our customers from Igloo, which is has a great company, big complex supply chain, and Carolyn Glenn, who is their head of logistics, also a veteran. You should note that.
Yeah, definitely.
Carolyn's going to be co-presenting with us, and she's done a remarkable job of modernizing their supply chain. Of course, it runs on our system, and we provide an awful lot of both the 3PL and the 4PL support for that company. So it'll be a good example at your conference there as to how these things come together.
Well, when we finalized your appearance at the Georgia Logistics Summit, that was a good get, right? A lot of your background, a lot of your leadership perspective that you shared in the warm-up session, I think is going to be intriguing to the 1,500 or so attendees at the summit. And everyone, just like everyone here, has an LL Bean book bag, or their kids do, I promise you. Everyone's got an Igloo cooler. And Igloo just celebrated their 70th year of operation. So
Amazing.
when you talk about modernizing a supply chain, that was probably no small feat.
Yeah, it was one of their 5 core strategic initiatives, and they've done a remarkable job of it.
So at the Georgia Logistics Summit, which, gosh, that's going to be another major theme today, Lee. We're going to talk to the good folks down there. So you're going to be on the challenges in the logistics workforce panel, and where they're going to be tapping into your experience building highly capable workforces. So can you give us an example about how AGL is helping the Igloo business and the company, and how are you helping them move forward?
And one of the things that, Igloo is an example of the way we approach every customer. But what the customer wants is one, to identify all of the gaps or the inefficiencies within the supply chain. I refer to it as the handoff points. Every handoff point, and there's numerous ones within any complex supply chain, that's where the money is spent or saved. And if you can really focus on those handoff points with your technology solutions, and particularly providing, proactive visibility into that. So instead of reacting all the time to bad things that always happen in supply chain management, you're really dealing with a proactive opportunity because you're seeing it happen, or you're seeing it as it happens, and you're able to jump on the problem immediately. And that's really what the technology of today is beginning to enable. And of course, taken to its fullest extent, you're going to be able to really start to predict when these things start to happen. There'll be patterns. There'll be, and the technology of today is beginning to emerge in that way, where we can predict and analyze the solutions as they occur, or even anticipate them occurring.
Now, can you talk a little bit about your time when you were running the port there in Long Beach? How does that inform your work today? Does that give you a different perspective than other leaders in this field, because you got to see kind of the process from a different angle?
Yeah, it was interesting. When I joined the port, I'd spent a career at FedEx, and so when you think about the UPSs of the world and the FedExes of the world that have built these incredible systems, the common theme in those systems is custodial control. They first built a system to manage the flow of goods end to end for their customers, where they controlled all the elements of the physical move. We call that custodial control. Well, as it evolved, FedEx in the mid 80s invented something called tracking and tracing, which revolutionized the shipping industry at that time. That's a long time ago. But it became referred to as custodial control of information. And so fast forward many, many decades, we're looking now at our complex supply chains within transportation as really trying to grab on and capture custodial control of information. And that's, Flexport's doing a great job at that. A lot of the companies that have emerged around this technology gap is really where the business is moving. AGL, of course, has been there working on that for a long time. But the bottom line is we're trying to achieve this custodial control of information end to end. What I found fascinating at the port was, while there's a tremendous amount of information, it was all siloed. And that's not uncommon. The siloing of information and the unwillingness to share information is going to be the big challenge in our industry. I think the highly distributed nature of supply chains and the kind of the siloed version of technology, where some is shared, some is not. The big core issue that I came across in trying to manage a process, we call it supply chain optimization. It became a national initiative. But what we tried to do was break down the barriers for sharing information. And it was not technology that was the barrier. It was the reluctance of people.
It was humans.
Humans not wanting to share. And I can tell you why. They did not want to reveal their proprietary information. They did not want to reveal their customer information. They did not want to reveal pricing. They did not want to reveal things. And the great fear is that by sharing this information, they would be compromised and they would lose their competitive advantage. And that's a common issue across all, players in the supply chain. And so in this particular example at the port, and it's repeated everywhere in the entire port world, is you've got lots of information not being adequately shared, and those handoff points where information has to be handed off along with the physical goods, that's where the breakdowns occur.
But isn't that also where opportunity can?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that when you look at the scale, the economic scale of what we're talking about trillions of dollars of goods being moved. We're talking about the potential of saving over $1 trillion in cost if you across the entire system. This is a massive amount of money. So in my view, this is what the exciting opportunity for our industry is really tackling the systems, tackling the integration of those systems, tackling the actual sharing of information, and things like blockchain. Hold promise that they might reduce some of that fear about sharing proprietary information. And that's why we're part of this BITA group, this Blockchain in Transportation Alliance. Because in our view, if we can in fact harness something like blockchain for our applications in this industry, then it'll break down those barriers and break down the fears and so forth. And then the sharing of information will be so much more fluid.
So let's talk about a couple of things there. John, you mentioned BITA, and one of the things one of the reasons we were excited to have you here today was because AGL recently announced your membership in that Blockchain of Transport Alliance, which is what BITA stands for.
Mm-hmm.
So explain to our listeners, talk more about what what blockchain can do for supply chain.
Well, blockchain was developed as a technology really for the movement of financial information, particularly around cyber currency. And of course, the big question is, can that same technology be adapted to the sharing of proprietary information across complex supply chains? And of course, arguably, it should be. We joined BITA because number one, we refuse to be left behind. You need to be part of the group that's influencing the standards and everything else that has to be accepted and adapted to across the entire supply chain. So we're there because we're not sure. A lot of people talk very affirmatively. I talk affirmatively about it, but we're not sure that it's going to be adapted. But I can tell you something like it will be, because the whole notion of custodial control of information and the safe movement of that data, that digital data, is critical to the cost reduction of the supply chains across the world.
Mm.
And without it, to me, we're going to stay stuck in these silo environments until we manage through that process.
So speaking of a hot segment within the Indian supply chain world, air cargo. So I know AGL is involved with air cargo with your customers. So can you talk more about not Captain Crunch, but capacity crunch that we've heard so much about this year?
Yeah, well, the air freight side of things have been very challenging. I mean, just the ocean freight side of things has the opposite problem with too much capacity and very low prices. The opposite is true with air freight, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. E-commerce is driving a tremendous focus or tremendous need for rapid movement of goods. And so while a lot of people were well prepared for it, they weren't as prepared as they thought in terms of physical capacity. So yeah, it's been a challenge. I think it'll resolve itself. Obviously, it always does over time. People see the business opportunity, they fill the gap, and so forth and so on. But the last year has been a real struggle to find sufficient amounts of capacity. We've been successful, and most of the folks we know in the business have been successful finding that, but it's not been inexpensive. So I think that coupled with the tremendous challenge we have on capacity for truck power is really defining the runaway costs that we see in the supply chain. Now, the good thing about air freight is it is more advanced on the information side than it is on the ocean side.
The U.S. government doesn't like any loosey-goosiness going on in air cargo world.
You're exactly right. And so the reality is that the opportunity for sharing information and really collecting data and being able to react to information on the air side is better than it is on the ocean side. But it still opens it up for a ubiquitous opportunity to look at information for all modes of transport. And I can say that even down to rail, which is a critical part of our supply chains across this country and across the world, even that is an opportunity for consolidation of information and sharing of data.
So I'm going to circle back on one final point here, John. Appreciate your time again today. So we were talking earlier, an igloo cooler sells literally every 1.6 seconds. That's remarkable. So that's a very difficult supply chain. I can only imagine the modernization, the optimization, how difficult a challenge that is. So we'll remember that next time each of my 3 kids grab a juice box out of our 3 igloo coolers we have right there in Walton County, Georgia. But let's talk about, you're talking about rail. We all know sitting here that rail is a big part and a big advantage for the Georgia supply chain infrastructure. So let's talk about why Atlanta was the right place to have the headquarters of American Global Logistics here.
Well, I mean, it's, we're not the only ones that think it's a great place. I mean, it is a fantastic place to do business, and it's clearly the natural, southeast gateway to everything related to trade. I mean, we have the airport, we have Savannah port, we have great rail access, we have tremendous highway access. It's a natural place to build a logistics hub. And so for us, there was little choice. Of course, the folks that started the business were from here, so that made it a natural thing. And we also have, the advantage of having regional activities around Georgia, including Virginia and so forth. So it's just a regional hub that's very, very, very vital. And I can't imagine that, given the innovation that's occurring so fast in the state of Georgia through our universities, through our various access to technologies, where that's going to slow down. I think Savannah has been leading the charge in terms of ports. When I was running the Port of Long Beach, we were always looking at Savannah and saying, geez, they really do a good job. And it was kind of it spurred us on to do even better things, even though we were a much larger port. They were flexible. They were agile. They were able to make decisions. They were able to introduce new technologies very, very fast. And that's what really Atlanta region's about, is making decisions collectively, very quickly, very effectively. And it's really fun to be here.
Now, are you able to attract the talent you need?
We have been able to. I know this. I know that's probably a little counterintuitive, but we've been very fortunate to attract tremendous talent, men and women, in equal numbers to our team. We're about
equal numbers. Elbow, did you get that?
I did.
Yeah,
50%.
Yes.
Show me 50%. You already have.
You just have to come by our office and you can see it. But we have a very large operations center in Virginia, and it's fantastic. It's equally represented, and they're all technical jobs. So we're very pleased with the talent. Now, admittedly, we were able to attract talent, into the logistics space from industries that we serve that were declining. So as jobs declined, there was opportunities on our side for a broader logistics play. So we took people, we were able to cross-train them, cross-develop it. It was transferable skills in many cases. So they just came, and it's been very, very fortunate for us to be able to attract that kind of talent.
So clearly, one reason that Atlanta is America's supply chain city. So $1 over to Jamie Rance for branding that. She's got T-shirts. Is American Global Logistics, who's headquartered here and proud member of the supply chain city. And if you want to learn more about what AGL does to move supply chains forward, check out the website at AmericanGlobalLogistics.com. And again, John, looking forward to all your perspective at the Georgia Logistics Summit.
Thank you.
So reason number 4,327 to come out to the summit. So thank you, John.